So today I'm going to be doing my full series review of Disney Plus's epic hit TV series. But no, not Grogu. No, it's not Mandalorian. Sorry, I'm talking about WandaVision. I I love the Mandalorian, but I think WandaVision's even better. I don't know, but So if you saw my episode reviews of WandaVision, then you know overall I absolutely adored this series. And I think for the most part it is really I think it's just in many ways it's arguably just the best thing or the most fascinating thing the MCU has given us to date. Even though they've always done a little bit of mixing of genres, I think this one especially WandaVision proves there is no sort of limit to what the MCU can really be. And that's why it can sort of just keep going and keep being this massive thing that appeals to so many different people. The performances, I think, are as great as every aspect of the show is. I mean, both the direction and everything by Matt Shakman. And the writing, I think, for the most part, is really good. I'll get to that a bit more later. Performances by Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Bettany, those two are just, arguably the best acting we've gotten in the MCU thus far. And, yeah, Elizabeth Olsen definitely especially should get an Emmy nomination for this series. It really sort of pulls you into Wanda and Vision's relationship if you weren't already. I already was, but this sort of takes it to a whole new level, and it's really it's a love story, and it's really about grief, which is arguably love's purest form. Wanda really comes into her own, and it really if nothing else, I mean, I'll talk more about the ending later, but it really builds up what we love about Wanda and Vision, and I think it makes them some top tier MCU characters. Now the side characters, I think Darcy and Jimmy and Monica, they all start out really strong when most of them, when you're really introduced to them in episode 4. I mean, technically you see Monica as Geraldine before that, but really episode 4 is when you're really introduced to all those characters, and I think that episode is great. It's still one of my favorite episodes, and I think their story all starts out really strong, and for a while you think, oh, is Monica going to sort of be the new protagonist now that the last episode or two is sort of setting Wanda up to be an antagonist? And yeah, so for a while that's interesting, but really quickly, I think their plotline does sort of end up fading into, I don't know, not being the stronger part of the show, I guess. I still really enjoyed it, but I mean, and there's odd things I don't know why it was such a big thing that Monica kept saying. I think around episode 5, she was like, oh yeah, I've got a friend who's an aerospace engineer. And it was this little nod at the camera kind of almost. And it made us sort of all think, oh, this is going to be some big cameo like Reed Richards or something. And then in episode 7, it just turned out to be some random person. So I don't know what that was all about. And I don't know why they kept showing close-ups of her hand, texting this person. I don't know what the deal was there. That's sort of one of the things that ended up frustrating me in the end. But overall, I think the performers are really good. I don't think they're anywhere near as good as Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen. But again, they're sort of the focal point of the show, as they should be. Obviously, though, I guess one other actress to mention is, of course, Kathryn Hahn as Agnes, or really Agatha Harkness, and she's pretty awesome, I will say. She just goes for it in this role, and so, I mean, I would still say not quite on the level of Elizabeth Olsen or Paul Bettany, but she's easily, the next up after. She's sort of definitely above everyone else in the show other than those two. And, yeah, she just really, she really looks like she's having a great time playing that absolutely despicable evil character. And I didn't mind Hayward. I forget the actor's name, but I know he got kind of generic in the end, but I think he sort of presented an interesting kind of view on things, like someone who feels burned by superheroes and stuff, and the time where he felt sort of abandoned in that 5-year gap. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a total dick.
If only you had a little more vision.
But I kind of want to see more of him, or at least see a bit more of what he sort of got up to in those 5 years. Don't get me wrong with the side characters. I still think, especially Jimmy Woo, I thought was hilarious the whole time, and it was great how he sort of continued learning the magic tricks from that he started getting intrigued by in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
How'd you do it, Scott?
Do what?
The card trick?
Ultimately, him and Darcy especially, like, they just sort of barely are there in the finale, and then then Monica, even, she thought blocks a few bullets, but then the kids were able to block them anyways from Hayward. So her story, I don't know, it felt sort of in the end like it was all really leading just to that after credit scene for her, where she goes and meets with the agent who's really a Skrull, and they're like, "Hey, Nick Fury wants you up top or up in space." But so that's a little disappointing. But at the end of the day, I mean, the show is called WandaVision, so I think it served, as much as the finale in some ways felt rushed, it's still one of my favorite episodes, I think, just because it had such great moments, both for Wanda and Vision. And I mean, obviously, especially Wanda, she becomes the Scarlet Witch for real. And that was just I think that final battle was actually really exciting. Some people I know didn't like it, but overall, I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I don't think so. I mean, this, like I said, this may very well be, I'm not really sure. It's sort of up there with a few of the movies now, because I do have some issues with it, but in many ways, it might be my favorite MCU project to date, just because of how much it made me feel and connect with the characters, and just the absolute brilliance of the filmmaking. How Matt Shackman sort of emulated all the different sitcom eras, and they actually had a live studio audience, and just the detail they went to. If you want to know more, like, watch the assembled documentary. It's just absolutely mind blowing. So from filmmaking wise, as far as I'm concerned, this is definitely the most fascinating project the MCU's ever done. Even though it's might be my favorite MCU project, I definitely don't think, as much as I like the third act, it's definitely not the strongest third act of the MCU. Because yeah, obviously, yeah, it's not like the third act of Endgame or something, but it does end a little abruptly, and from what I've heard, that sort of might have had something to do with COVID, and there was supposed to be a bit more. But I mean, ultimately, I don't know if I'd really care to see an extended cut of the finale, unless it was really gonna rework the whole Pietro thing, which I know it wouldn't. But that was, I mean, so the aerospace engineer is one little thing, but the thing that frustrated me most, and I think everybody, is just Ralph Boner. Like, they literally named him Boner just to make us feel silly for thinking it was gonna be something awesome.
Boner.
That being said, I'm still happy that Evan Peters was in the show, because it was really cool seeing that awesome version of Quicksilver. And even though I liked Aaron Taylor Johnson's, but it was cool to see him alongside Elizabeth Olsen, because they never really had Scarlet Witch in the X-Men movies. So I really dug that. And hey, maybe we'll get more of him. Maybe there's still more layers to peel back on that character. I don't know. But overall, I think WandaVision just really was such a unique project. So even though, yes, in the end there were some issues, but it doesn't hold it back really for me. Just absolutely loving it. And I mean, if I ever do a ranking in the MCU, I'm not sure where I would rank exactly. It would 100% be top 5, probably top 3. Depending how I feel in a while, maybe it will just be number 1. I don't know. I loved it. Like, in terms of, like, just the things it made me feel, I would say it's just, I don't know, the only things that really come close emotionally in the MCU, but I mean, obviously Infinity War and Endgame, because those are really emotionally hefty movies. But yeah, overall, I think it was absolutely amazing. And I mean, like I said, the writing, I don't know. I think Jack Schaefer did a great job overall, because I mean, most of the series is amazing, and the characters, everything they say is really good for the most part.
But what is grief? If not love, persevering.
But it does sort of like feel like a bit rushed in the end, but I don't really know how much of that you can put on Jack Schaefer, and that's probably, I mean, partly, I mean, I wanted to just connect to the Fox universe, but I mean, obviously, I don't think that's fully up to the writer or even the director. It's like with a big franchise like this, probably more up to Marvel and Kevin Feige, who probably knows what he's doing, obviously more than me. But overall, I mean, so WandaVision, I wanted to say it was like perfect, that it was the best thing ever in the MCU, hands down. It might still be, but I do think it has some issues, so I can't quite give it, for my first actual rating on my channel, first official rating, I can't quite give it that 10 out of 10 that I wanted to give it. But that being said, for the most part, I think it's still just incredible, and so I'm giving it what I would probably give any of the best things in the MCU. So I'm giving it a 9.5 out of 10. So very close, but a few things in it definitely hold it back a bit, unfortunately. But overall, I really, really love this series, and I'm really excited to see what the other Marvel Disney Plus shows are like. I'm excited for Falcon and Winter Soldier and Loki and all that, but I do think it's unlikely that they'll top WandaVision. I mean, they're going to be completely different kind of shows, but I mean, just in terms of the acting and the emotionality and, well, just that, like I said, the filmmaking, because it's just so unique and so well done. I don't think anything in the MCU personally is going to top WandaVision anytime soon. I think maybe I don't know. The one I'm most excited for, obviously, is Multiverse of Madness, because that's what WandaVision's leading directly into. So yeah, those are my thoughts on WandaVision, the full series. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. Take care. Bye.